Thanks, Jade, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dan, and as Jade said, I'm a technology evangelist specializing in cloud and artificial intelligence at Microsoft. Now, my role means that I get to travel all over the world. I meet new people, we share stories, and collectively, we discuss the ways in which technology brings change. But one of the things that often bothers me is the fact that many people still see this technology as being out of their reach or something that's meant for only the largest of organizations. So today, I'm going to dispel that myth. I'm going to show you the unique ways in which I use technology and how it's digitally transformed my life. Ready? Let's begin. Now, it starts with my morning routine. Like many, I wake up and reach for my smart device to find out where I need to be, what meetings I have, and how I'm going to get there. But more important than this is my son's routine. Now, he has mild Asperger's, which means that he likes stability. In fact, a few years back when he was getting ready to start school, we had real trouble adjusting to change. To help, I used to have a dry whiteboard in his room, and every night we would write down what would be happening the following day. This comforted him, which in turn gave great comfort to me. But being a technology enthusiast, I wanted to do this better. I wanted a new gadget and found that the developer community had created some software called the Magic Mirror. I was totally sold. I had an old laptop running Linux and an old monitor and proceeded to head to my shed so that I could grab the drill and then drill big holes through the kitchen cupboard into the hall so that I could hang the mirror. But it then dawned on me that I was doing IT the old-fashioned way. I didn't want to maintain computers and operating systems. I certainly didn't want to mess up the kitchen with my dreadful DIY skills. So I migrated the app to a container and I hosted it in the cloud. This gave me the functionality I wanted, but meant that all I needed was a cheap tablet to run the session because it was all being processed remotely. What's more, the application became portable and accessible from anywhere on any connected device, meaning that when changes happened, I could update his schedule and he would be notified so that he could prepare. Now, honestly, we haven't needed to use this for a few years. He doesn't need it anymore. So the technology is now being repurposed. But at the time, it was invaluable and it helped alleviate anxiety in a period of great change. Now, a key part of my role is informing the world about the exciting developments that happen in Azure. The trouble is, with over 200 services and an aggressive development schedule, it's almost impossible to keep on top of it all. This posed a real problem until I realized that the solution was pretty much staring me in the face. Why not use the technology to promote the technology? With a simple workflow, I was able to automate what I was doing. And this was nothing more than a small logic app that would head over to the Microsoft blogs once per hour and then post a tweet on my behalf if it found anything new and interesting. What's more, I connected the APIs of Twitter into a database so I could see how people were responding and my social impact. In fact, let me jump into a demo and show you how simple this is to build. So what I'm going to do here is use a simple workflow that will check Twitter for a specific hashtag every few minutes. If it finds a match to the logic that I set, it will send the contents of a tweet across to an AI cognitive service, which is a plug-in artificial intelligence service that Microsoft offer. It will then score the content based on the sentiment of the text. If positive, we will get it to send me an email with the details. So let me go ahead and build that out now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my Azure portal. we can see that I've created a new dashboard for today's session. And if I head into a resource group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of serverless computing and the workflows from a Logic app. Now, in the sake of transparency, I've already created the cognitive service. And this was just a couple of seconds, but I wanted to keep this demo short. So I'm going to click on Add, and that's going to take me into the Azure Marketplace. From here, I will look for a Logic app. Now, as I go through the form, we can see that all I need to do is put an instance name in for my Logic app. So I'm going to go ahead and call this CyberSecurity Evolved. Okay, and we can see that that's happy with that. I'm going to store this in Central US, and I'm going to go ahead and review and create this Logic app. So now Azure is building out this service for me. And in a moment when that's done, I'll be able to go into the designer and I'll be able to create my workflow. So we can see that that's now done. Let's go to the resource. And from here, we can begin to build our workflow. Now you'll see that there's a whole bunch of templates that are already available for me to use. But because it's so simple to build out, I'll create a blank Logic app. So from here, I will search for Twitter. And I'm going to say when a new tweet is posted, and then connect in to the Twitter API. So to do this, I just need to connect into my user account. So I'm going to use Azure Dan. Got to love a live demo. Let's try that again. There we go. Third time lucky. So I'm going to authorize that app and we're going to connect into the Twitter APIs. So once we've done that, what I want to do is I'm going to look for the hashtag CyberSecurity Evolved. So we'll paste that in and we're going to leave it at a default that we're going to check every 3 minutes. Then from here, what I want to do is I want to take the information that it pulls out of the tweet and I want to push that into text analytics. And from here, I want it to detect the sentiment. Now, at this point, what I need to do is I need to plug it in to the Logic, to the cognitive services that I've already created. And to do that, I'm just going to use the name of the service. I'm going to use the connection key of the service. And I'm going to use the endpoint. So what's the name, effectively the account key to connect to it and where it can find it. Once I've done that, once I've connected into it, I'm going to add the text from Twitter. And we can see that, look, if I go down the side, we can see that it's plugged into the Twitter API. And I'm going to take the tweet text. And then I'm going to add a new step. Now from here, I'm going to put in some simple logic. I'm going to add a condition. And if I add the condition, we can see that I have that here. And my condition is going to be really simple. I'm going to say that if Cognitive Services has created a score that is greater than or equal to 0.5. Now, how this works, 0 will be negative, 1 will be positive. So what I'm saying here is, look, anything that's in the middle, I'm going to say is true. And from here, I'm going to add an action. And I'm going to go ahead and say, right, I'm going to use Office 365 Outlook. And what I want it to do is I want it to send me an email. So I'm going to go ahead and say, send an email. And from here, I'm going to connect in to my account. So I'm going to connect into Twitter at azuredan.net. And once that's done, I'm going to send an email to myself. And I'm going to put, check out this tweet from, and from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the Twitter name, the name of the user. And then in the body, I will put, check out this tweet from, and again, we'll put in the name. Who said, we'll put in the tweet text. And influenced, let's put in the follow account. So again, really, really simple for it to build me out this email. So now I'm going to save this and I'm going to hit run. Now, I spoke to Jade before this webinar, and Jade's going to be kind enough to send a tweet out for me now. So if Jade, if you can send a tweet for me, what we'll do is we'll run this logic app and we'll see what's been said and we'll see how AI has detected the sentiment. We can see that's now running. And I'll hit a refresh and look, I've now got a success. And if I click on this, we can see that my simple logic app has worked. If we come down, we can see, look, a new tweet is being posted. I can see that the hashtag it pulled out. I can see the tweet text. I can see when it was created. I can see who it was tweeted by. I can see the sentiment of it, and AI has detected a sentiment of 0.93. I can see that the condition is true, so it's gone ahead and it's created me an email. And we can see this. Look, if I jump into my email client, I can see that I've now just received an email from Jade Evans, who said that she's having a great presentation today and hope everyone else is too. Now, again, that was a really quick and simple demo, but I hope what it shows you is the power of cloud technology and how you could use this to, market a product or look at how well, your brand is doing. Now, obviously, that was a really quick build. And I'm sure you can appreciate with a little work, you can pull some great insight from the data. But, and there is always a but, I did find something interesting. You see, using this method, I was occasionally receiving false positives. And that was negative sentiments for words where artificial intelligence had struggled to understand the context. Words like sick and wicked, for example. This took me on a journey of discovery and made me investigate how the machine learning model scored the text. Before I dive into the mechanics though, let's quickly discuss how artificial intelligence learns. Currently, we break it down into three methods: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement-based learning. Supervised is just what the name suggests. It means someone looking over the shoulder of the CPU and judging whether the computer is getting things right. This way of teaching means that each example is tagged with the correct answer so the machine can learn through association and repetition. But what happens when we don't have perfectly labeled data sets or we ask questions that haven't been trained? This type of learning is called unsupervised. With this model, the machine is given the data with no explicit instructions and simply asked to find patterns. This could be through matching colors, shapes, or sizes, or perhaps anomaly detection. Think about how your bank checks for fraudulent activity, or how sometimes your card won't work when you're abroad. This is down to a machine detecting unusual patterns. This brings me to our last example, reinforcement-based learning. This training is based on two aspects, discovery of what's not known and exploitation of what is. Think of it like playing a video game. How many times have you tried to complete a level only to run into an enemy or some other thing that cuts the game short? Through trial and error, patience and practice, you eventually figure out the way to beat the level and ultimately complete the game. And that's the very essence of reinforcement-based learning. So if we go back to our example, we can see that the text analytics is based on dictionaries. And this equates to supervised learning. And that's where the problem resonates. Words like sick and wicked are taken completely out of context because of the way in which the model has been trained. So how do we fix this? Well, what better way to learn the English language than to turn to our greatest writer? Yes, Shakespeare. I searched the internet, found his work, and ported it over to a data warehouse so that I could clean and format it in a way that artificial intelligence could then score. Then I turned to Power BI, a rich visualization tool that would enable me to connect into the AI model and plot the positive and negative sentiments. As you can see, I chose Hamlet. Now, as we look at this, you'd expect we will see some negative sentiment. And, this is going to be things like Hamlet meets the ghost, the death of Polonius, the alas poor Yorick parts. But what's unexpected and frankly a little concerning was the planning of the murder, which, as you can see, has been scored in a positive way. Suddenly I was flooded with remorse. Everything the scaremongers had said was going to come true. The machines were coming and they were probably going to kill us all. So I did what any responsible person would do. I told it the story of the Terminator. Fortunately, it turns out that killer robots, nuclear war, and Armageddon are generally frowned upon. In fact, the only time it sees a positive is towards the end when Arnie kills the even meaner Terminator. Now, all joking aside, this tells us something very important about artificial intelligence. You see, AI eats data. You feed it the wrong data, and the only thing it will ever empower you to do is make the wrong decision with more confidence. Let me give you another example. Recently, the World Economic Forum posted an article about the importance of data. They reported how AI had been used to analyze 3.5 million books dating back to the year 1900 and identify how men and women were described. Now, it probably comes as no surprise that it found bias. Women were typically described as objects, while men more on their behavior. And this kind of data poses huge risks. If we're to move forward with artificial intelligence, then we have a responsibility to ensure that it's fostered in an ethical and unbiased environment. To be successful, we need to ensure that the machines we build reflect our timeless values, and that requires humanity to reflect upon itself. You see, designing ethical AI to empower others and amplify human ingenuity means that it must be fair, must also be inclusive, transparent, accountable, and safe. These guiding principles must be firmly rooted in architectural designs and then mature into systems that will foster positive impact. And I'm sure you can all agree with recent events. I think that now more than ever, you have to collectively think about the society that we want to live in. We need to talk openly and frankly about what the future will look like. We need to adhere to the principles that will allow us to be considerate of social complexities. Now, before working at Microsoft, I was actually a professional sports photographer. I spent my days alongside athletes, models, and sports cars. But I gave it all up because what I really wanted to do was work in IT. But all joking aside, I couldn't keep up with the agencies. They had the money and the manpower, and I simply couldn't compete. But had I known then what I know now, I could have disrupted the industry and become a cloud-connected photographer. Let me explain what I mean. Now, I used to tether my professional camera to my laptop. This meant as I took the pictures, they would feed directly into my photo editing software. From here, I ran a workflow, creating a smaller watermarked image that I could upload into social media when I returned home. But had I connected my laptop to my phone, I could have uploaded those smaller images into a cloud store. I could have then run a Logic app and automated the publishing of those images directly. This means they would have been ready to purchase minutes after pressing the shutter button. You see, this is the essence of digital transformation. With a little imagination and thinking outside the box, you can achieve amazing things. But like many, my kid loves playing video games, and Minecraft is one of his all-time favorites. He'll spend hours making the tools and building new worlds, and more often than not, expect me to join in. And I'll be honest with you, this terrifies me. As a middle-aged man, I can honestly say I have no idea what I'm doing. I spend half my time trying to figure out what button I should be pressing, and as every parent will attest, it simply won't do. Fortunately, we now live in a connected world where people can play with other like-minded gamers over the internet. But this gave me another headache. You see, I want my son to be able to reach out and communicate with others. But as a parent, and especially because of his condition, I also want to strongly police who he's playing with and ensure that he's protected. So again, I turned to technology and built him his own Minecraft server in Azure. This was nothing more than going into the marketplace and filling out a form, specifying things like the name of the server and how large it should be. Within a couple of minutes, I had the server up and running and pointed my son towards it to play. But this also meant that I could whitelist the accounts that could play with him. So I spoke to the parents at the school. I talked to his friends and configured their online access. This was perfect. The kids could play online and the parents were happy that they were safe. It was a win-win situation. But it actually highlighted another unexpected benefit. You see, as far as the kids are concerned, at 9:30, the cloud goes to bed. There's no arguments. There's no, Dad, you're so unfair. They just accept that Microsoft turned it off. It's brilliant. I never have to be the bad person. But if we bring this back down into industry, couldn't this approach work across all deployments? Isn't this the whole idea behind elasticity and agility in the cloud? I believe it is. We're no longer bound by the restraints of on-premises deployments. We can set schedules, we can enforce limits, and we can feel confident that we will only ever pay for the resources that we consume. But technology moves forward. And today we can take that Minecraft experience outside. With applications such as Minecraft Earth and Spatial Anchors, we can explore our local park and beach. We can collect objects and we can enjoy, augmented reality, multiplayer experiences. Again, I still have no idea what I'm doing, but at least I can take some comfort in the fact that I've actually managed to get my child outside. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is no small feat. What is amazing, though, is the data that can be collected from our games. In fact, take this popular racing simulator. As you can see, I can connect it into an Azure Event Hub and collect the streaming data sets to visualize things like speed, steering, and throttle to brake ratios. Now, I appreciate that this is just a game, but again, if we think a little outside the box, that data could be from IoT devices connected to a real sports car. This information could be ingested by a real team, and these insights could be adopted by a real driver. That's the power of cloud computing. And these are the unique ways that we should be inspiring our children and engineers of tomorrow as we try to bridge the skills gap and promote STEM subjects in our schools. But we can't all be racing teams. Some of us may just be small startups. And this means a web presence. That goes without saying. We need a website to look professional. We need a website to gain visibility and stay competitive and connect with our customers. But with the average cost of a small website ranging between £500 to £1,000, these are costs that can cripple a new small business. But what if I could draw my web page? A simple sketch on a piece of paper that I could upload into the cloud and have artificial intelligence understand what I was trying to achieve. What if I could simply press a button and have the code created automatically just from a snapshot of my drawing? Today, this isn't science fiction, it's reality. Tools such as the Microsoft Sketch to Code platform are empowering customers to build digital content with little IT knowledge. Let's jump into a demo and take a look. So again, I'm going to head over to sketchtocode.azurewebsites.net. And you can see there's a whole bunch of samples that you can use here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the Sophos CyberSecurity Evolved website that I drew out yesterday in preparation for today. You can see I want a heading, I want to have a picture, I want to have my bio, and what I want is I want some lines for text. So again, the results will vary, and this is based on load and what the AI model has learned. So let's try. If I click on Upload Design, I'm going to pick my CyberSecurity Evolved image, and we can see in real time this is going to feed up into the cloud. We can see that it's looking at the sketch, and we can see that it's built my HTML using predicted objects. So we can go through and we can see what the cloud has pulled out. Now, again, what I've done is I've downloaded this morning. And if I open up the CyberSecurity Evolved, you can see that it's got my headings, it's got my placeholder for a picture, and it's got the placeholder for text. So again, this is digitally transforming the way people run and build their businesses. It's allowing artificial intelligence to be available for all. Okay, let's change focus. Now, I'm going to get more personal now. As a single man, I'm no stranger to dating apps. I'll be honest with you, I can't say I'm particularly a fan. I would much rather be in a nightclub believing that alcohol has made me the funniest and, dare I say, best dancing man on the planet. But singletons have embraced technology. And if I'm to find my forever love, then I need to embrace it too. Now, I won't disclose which ones I use, but what I will say is that I've begun to realize that these sites contain an awful lot of bots. And let's be honest, they're not hard to spot. Anyone that seems way out of your league suddenly popping up to say hello should be a cause of skepticism. But what's fascinating is that many of the beautiful profile pictures that accompany the messages are completely fabricated too. Take this beautiful woman, for example. When she messaged me, I thought that my stars had aligned. But the fact is, she's simply not real. Generative adversarial networks, or GANs, are now able to create images of people who simply don't exist. And they can do this with amazing accuracy. It's not just people either. It could be cats, horses, art, and news articles. Even scripts from popular shows such as The Office and Friends. Let me show you. So again, if I head over to into my browser and over to the URL, thispersondoesnotexist.com, we can see that if I hit a refresh, the GAN network will build out for me a fake human picture. Again, if I hit refresh, another fake person. These people are not real. One more. But on top of this, we can also see that I can use AI for cats. So if I open in the new tab, we can see that this cat does not exist.com. If I open up the art, we can see that artificial intelligence is now creating abstract works of art. Okay, and this is all happening in real time. But if we go into things like, I don't know, The Office, for instance, if I open that in a new tab, we can see that The Office is now generating every 10 seconds new scenes that never existed. And this is doing this just by learning from its environment. It's doing this by learning from all of the images that we post on social media and all of the text that's available on social media. But like I say, let's go back to my depressing love life. And as I said, I quickly discovered that something was a little off. I mean, her answers seemed strange and they even repeated themselves at times. Now, she said it was because she didn't speak my language, even though she was supposedly 4 miles away from me. And in my heart of hearts, I knew that I was probably talking to AI. That being said, she is beautiful and I'm stupid, so we did carry on for another hour. We only gave up after she began asking for my financial information. But perhaps more worryingly is the rise of the deep fake video culture. And that's a technology that makes use of deep neural networks and machine learning to transpose one face on top of another. Take this clip from Back to the Future, for example. Now, in this scene, Marty is fighting off the affection of his future mother, Lorraine. But if you look carefully, you can actually see that Marty is now being played by Spider-Man actor Tom Holland and the Doc by Robert Downey Jr. This is frankly terrifying. Deep neural networks have created synthetic replicas and blended them into pre-existing sources. And while this example has no real societal, political, or even malicious intent, many deep fakes are now being produced that do. They're being used to influence and modify behavioral patterns. In fact, by October last year, Forbes were reporting that over 15,000 deep fakes were in circulation on social media. That's a rise of 84% from the year before, and frankly, a problem that's only getting worse. Fortunately, there are some telltale signs that give deepfakes away. As I mentioned before, I used to work as a professional photographer before I joined Microsoft. So I've been trained to look at the eyes. The eyes give everything away. Try it yourself. I mean, look at any magazine model and you'll see from the eyes just how the photographer used lighting to extenuate the model's beauty. But the eyes are also the Achilles heel of deep fakes. You see, many of them learn by crawling through images. But here's the thing, we never upload bad images, do we? Our eyes are always open, our smile is always beaming. This means that the reference data of such neural networks is skewed. It only has the good to work with. So things like eye blinking, which is part of natural communication, has become a real challenge. Okay, let's wrap this up with one final example. Now, I'm a type 2 diabetic. I have been for over 30 years. And this is something I've had to continually fight. And not just the disease, but the stereotypes behind it. You see, type 2 diabetes is a byproduct of metabolic syndrome. And that's nothing more than a combination of issues that are caused by poor lifestyle choices. This affected my dad too. In fact, one of my most vivid memories was of him getting a blister on his toe. Then a week later, having to have half of his foot amputated due to infection. It terrified me because it was like looking at my own future. But if I'm brutally honest, I never really understood the disease. I was ignorant and ran with the advice that I'd been told. What's more, as it progressed, I needed to consume more and more medication to maintain control. This puts significant strain on the NHS, who today spend around £9 billion a year treating the millions of Britons thought to be living with a condition. For me, though, it really came to a head in late 2017 when I was diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy. And that's a breakdown of the cells in the back of my eyes, which, if left untreated, would eventually lead to my blindness. I was distraught. And rightly or wrongly, the only thing that I could think of was how my son would cope if I went blind. Now, this is going to sound a little bit morbid, but during the week when he was with his mum, I would blindfold myself and try and map out the house so that he wouldn't feel scared if the worst happened. Obviously, that would have never worked, but it just highlights where my head was at. And as I began to sink into depression, I knew that I needed to take ownership of the problem. I couldn't afford to passively follow the advice of my medical team because the disease was sadly just getting worse. So I decided to reduce the problem to data and found out about the Night Scout project. But the first step of the project was to set up continuous monitoring of my levels. I'd become aware of sensors that you could purchase that would allow you to take readings by using the near-field communication from my phone. But this meant holding my phone up to scan throughout the day. And honestly, once I'd invested my time into the project, I wanted this to become automated too. So I found an NFC bridge. This was nothing more than a small cap that fitted over the initial sensor and performed the scan every 5 minutes. What's more, because it was tethered to my phone over Bluetooth, it meant that the data collection became hands-free. It was from here that the Night Scout project really came into its own. I was able to run a small app that pushed the data up into the cloud, allowing me to visualize the results. I was blown away by just how simple it was to connect everything together using the data ingestion tools of Power BI. This in turn gave me the confidence to look at bringing in data from other IoT wearables I had. I mean, why not the sleep data from my fitness tracker, or the punch statistics from my boxing trackers, or even my body composition from the machines at the gym? The thing is, we're surrounded by data. We need to get better at utilizing it. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. By seeing this massive influx of data and being able to set trends, I began to get better insights into what my diet and exercise routines were doing to my body. And let me just level with you. I've read every diet book out there, and honestly, they all contradict one another. Pick one up and you're living off plants, another and you'll convince yourself that you need to be a carnivore. The next will have you pouring butter in your tea. But by reducing the problem to data, I was able to see the facts. I had clarity, and clarity empowers you to make better decisions. So I began self-experimenting. I started looking at what I was eating, how long it took to elevate my sugar levels, and how long they would remain high. What I discovered was that my sugar levels were not dropping, and this was because the mean time between meals was set too low. Let me elaborate. It takes between 8 to 12 hours for the body to digest food, with the macronutrients beginning to break it down at around the 3.5-hour mark. But we're having 3 meals per day, and even if we're generous and say that they're spaced out at 7-hour intervals, we're still not allowing the digestive cycle to complete. On top of this, we like to snack. We're all guilty of it. Be it a biscuit or a banana, it's going to break the digestive cycle and increase insulin resistance. This in turn can lead to metabolic syndrome and more often than not, weight gain. But you know what else I found incredible? The time I was eating. If I ate my breakfast at 6 a.m., my sugar levels would be significantly higher than if I ate that exact same meal some 2 hours later. And I believe that's because of cortisol, our fight or flight hormone. You see, when we wake up, our cortisol levels are elevated. It sets us up for the day and ensures that we get out of bed. This in turn increases insulin production, which could in turn cause insulin resistance, especially if you have metabolic syndrome. So eating when my cortisol levels were elevated caused my blood sugar levels to be higher. Ultimately, I found that my optimal eating pattern was 1 large meal per day between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. This meant that my sugar levels would rise, but then significantly reduce as the day progressed. What's more, by not having to process food, my sleep cycles began to improve. I fell asleep easier, and the quality of sleep was higher. But even with this, I found an opportunity to use technology, and I did this with my smart home lighting. Now, as I said, when we wake up, our cortisol levels are elevated. but it's been proven that natural light reduces the hormone. Natural light runs at about 10,000 on the Kelvin scale. This is the blue-white light which stimulates the brain. So in order to reduce the hormone, I could either go for a lovely long walk or configure my lighting accordingly. In contrast to this, melatonin, that's the hormone that makes us sleepy, is maximized with a Kelvin temperature of around 3,500, and this will naturally come across as a warm reddish color. Again, by setting up some lighting workflows, I was able to dynamically change the color and luminosity of my home lighting throughout the day, stimulating the right hormones at the right time and reducing insulin resistance. This tied in with the data collection from the devices around me, enabled me to build a better picture of what was happening to my body. This in turn ensured that I made the right decisions. So where are we today? Well, we're in a good place. I'm 70 pounds lighter, 11 inches smaller, and I haven't used any medication for over a year. And to put that into perspective, that was 4 injections a day and 12 tablets that I had to take every day to stay alive. Technology has been the enabler that's empowered my transformation. The right tools have given me the confidence to be here today, healthy, drug-free, and hopeful for my future. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I want to encourage you to think outside the box and look at technology with a sense of wonder. Because when we do, we're capable of so many amazing things. Jade, back to you.